وزنوا بالقسطاس المستقيم. ولا تبخسوا الناس أشياءهم ولا تعثوا في الأرض مفسدين. ولا تعثوا في الأرض مفسدين واتقوا الذي خلقكم والجبلة الأولين. قالوا إنما أنت من المسحرين وما أنت إلا بشر مثلنا وإن نظنك لمن الكاذبين. فأسقط علينا كسفا من السماء إن كنت فأسقط علينا كسفا من السماء إن كنت من الصادقين. قال ربي أعلم بما تعملون. فكذبوه فأخذهم عذاب يوم الظلة إنه كان عذاب يوم عظيم. إن في ذلك لآية وما كان أكثرهم مؤمنين وإن ربك لهو العزيز الرحيم. وإنه لتنزيل رب العالمين. نزل به الروح الأمين على قلبك لتكون من المنذرين بلسان عربي مبين. وإنه لفي زبر الأولين وإنه لفي زبر الأولين أولم يكن لهم آية أن يعلمه علماء بني إسرائيل ولو نزلناه على بعض الأعجمين فقرأه عليهم ما كانوا به مؤمنين كذلك سلكناه في قلوب المجرمين لا يؤمنون به حتى يروا العذاب الأليم سيأتيهم بغتة وهم لا يشعرون سيأتيهم بغتة وهم لا يشعرون سيقولوا هل نحن منظرون أفبعذابنا يستعجلون أفرأيت إن متعناهم سنين ثم جاءهم ما كانوا يوعدون ثم جاءهم ما كانوا يوعدون ما أغنى عنهم ما كانوا به يمتعون وما أهلكنا من قرية إلا لها منذرون ذكرى وما كنا ظالمين وما تنزلت به الشياطين وما ينبغي لهم وما يستطيعون إنهم عن السمع لمعزولون فلا تدع مع الله إلها آخر فلا تدع مع الله إلها آخر فتكون من المعذبين صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you all for making the effort to be here tonight, physically or online. For those physically present, please can I ask everyone who's seated on the floor to move as far forward as possible. Yesterday, I was going to interrupt the lecture. I didn't, but I've been given permission to do so today if there's any space. So if we can ask everybody to move as far forward as possible, I won't have to interrupt the lecture. Can we have a loud salawat? There was people waiting in the corridors and lots of different things I got told after. So if we can move as far forward as possible, as far forward, Sheikh doesn't bite, inshallah, all the way up to the steps, please. Thank you so much. Someone tried yesterday. Really appreciate that. Thank you. So I'm really proud to be a Brummi, and the fact that Brother Muhammad Ali is a Brummi too makes me even more proud because that recitation was fantastic. Thank you so much. Only he will know that and not me. And I think we're truly blessed to be here today in this beautiful chapel, the home of the Al Mahdi Institute. Al Mahdi is renowned for world class Muslim scholarship and continues to provide a vital platform for open and authentic, conscientious, ethical, and the critical study of Islam. And aside from that cutting edge research, the Al Mahdi Institute offers an online Hawza program. You can study at your own pace. And even in the final year, you can opt to do a master's from the University of Birmingham. There's lots of information on the website, and that website is almahdi.edu, or grab yourself a prospectus or the latest edition of the Insights magazine from the foyer. I believe there's still an opportunity to sponsor the program, or if you feel so inclined to donate to the Institute, donations are welcome again in the reception and can be made by cash or card. And speaking about donations, I believe there's a food bank collection in the reception. And before Salah, we'll have a quick announcement from the organizers as well. This year's lecture series has been sponsored on behalf of the Marhumin displayed on the TV screens, which are located outside the chapel. Can we please recite one Surah Fatiha and observe a moment's silence for all of these people and the Marhumins? We still have lots of people coming in. So all the people coming in, please come as far forward as possible. We were filling up the hall from the steps at the front. So thank you so much. Okay, so in case of an emergency, and this is really important housekeeping, the fire exits are located at the back of the chapel, the main entrance outside of the chapel, and the double doors by the dining room. We do have extra capacity, and that's for everyone and anyone who needs it. But it also provides a little bit more comfort for our younger attendees if they feel they need to have that. Speaking about our youngest attendees, we also have a parallel program running this year for children in reception up to year 6 in the dining hall. And it was really nostalgic yesterday. Partway through the program, they all came in. If anybody's ever experienced that, that's what we used to do as well. Continuing with the programming, tomorrow night's program will start at 8 p.m. with Quran, followed by lecture, matam, ziyarat, salah, and refreshments. And if you've missed out on a lecture, and maybe some of you have, if you missed out on a lecture, please visit our YouTube page. The lectures will be available. And if you can't make it in person, you can also go to sheikharif.com/live. And if you use that link, there's a downloadable PDF with the Arabic verses mentioned in the lecture. There's some notes there as well. I've had a look at those ones today. They're really useful, and I'll just remind you why in a moment. So to stay up to date with all things AMI, follow and subscribe on social media, and ask at reception about joining the WhatsApp mailing list if you haven't already. I know I had a few people ask about that yesterday. So that's all for announcements, and soon I'll ask Sheikh to take his seat for tonight's lecture, which is part 5. We will attempt to have a Q&A in the dining hall today with tea. Right, we will attempt to, but no promises. We'll attempt to, and this is likely not to be streamed as well. We've been encouraged to bring and utilize our devices during the lecture. It's like the opposite of having permission. You can use your phone to follow the verses Sheikh will speak about. So please take a moment. The instructions get more complex every night. So take a moment, get your phones ready, but do that after a loud salawat and do a surah Fatiha, and also try and fill the hall as much as possible. Salawat. One loud salawat again.
رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وإياك نستعين. الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه المنتجبين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى قيام يوم الدين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Going into the problem and building on from what we have been saying, we ended on this note yesterday, although I'm going to be going forward and backward to try and piece it all together. We stated that there's something going on inside there. There is a profound story. Something has happened. This world is not in vain. We have not created the sky and the earth save by the truth. Not la'ibin, not in vain, not as a sport or pastime. Had we wanted to take it as a plaything, we would have taken it from ourselves. The Quran says we could have done that, but this is a serious thing that is happening here in your lives. You see, on that note, I just want to bring that idea forward as we advance back into the problem. See, Rumi says that Shaitan on the day of Qiyamah will say, don't blame me. Blame yourself. The Quran says, La talumuni walumu anfusakum. Don't blame me, blame yourselves. Da'awtukum fastajabtumu li. I called you, you came running to me. Ma antum bimusrikhiyya wa ma ana bimusrikhikum. I'm not going to be responding to your pleas, and neither are you going to be responding to my plea. He is quite dignified in that way, this Mal'oon. He is quite dignified. He says, look, we deserve this. Let us burn together. Don't complain about it. In that way, he's quite dignified, although curses of God be upon him eternally, as God has said, yes? Or as the Quran has said. Let me just clarify that. So Rumi, in this respect, he says, look, don't blame the devil. The devil was only there to tease out what was lurking within you. Yeah? What was inside you, the devil wanted to bring out. He said, you see, if a dog and a sheep mate and they have an offspring and you don't know the nature of the offspring, what will you do? You will put before it herbs and bones. If it rushes towards the herbs, it's a sheep. If it rushes towards the bones, it's a dog. There is something in there. It is being revealed constantly. The situations are being created that you begin to reveal yourself and come to the fullness of what is within you, something that is lurking inside you. But this explanation will not make any sense, save to a faithful, because a faithful, alhamdulillah, decide to trust in God and they say, God cannot be unjust. Everything has a meaning. God is wise. I will trust in God. However, as the human mind begins to think, and its natural disposition is to be curious, inquiring, they do not find answers that satiate. And that is when the human mind asks questions. Isn't that the very thing the Quran did? Ignited inquiry within the minds of the pagan. Does this make sense to you? Does such a God make sense to you? Can God indeed command to that which is indecent and evil? Inna Allah ya'mur bil adli wal ihsan. Allah commands to justice and generosity, not to fahsha and indecency. Their minds were prompted to think. That is our natural state, our human condition, to think. Now, when the thinking people start to think, religion becomes nonsensical. It doesn't make sense. A lot of us entertain questions. Religious responses blot out the questions as soon as they arise. But yet, within the depths of nights, at times they lurk within. But the very fact that we are not comfortable with dying, the very fact that we are petrified, shows that we haven't understood. Even a faithful who trusts God, yet is afraid, shows that they require to understand what's going on. So you see, religion will say, well, God knows best, trust God. Our state is like a person who awakens on an island and he asks a fundamental question according to his own mind. What is my purpose here? Wait a minute. Shouldn't you be asking, how did I get here? What is this place? Why am I here? And beyond it all, who am I? Shouldn't those be the fundamental questions we ask? Instead of asking the question, what is my purpose here? That is the religious question. What is my purpose on earth? It is to worship God. And of course, it creates all types of anomalies in the head. Trust me, I've been through this nonsense in my head for years now, for decades. Why should that be my purpose? God, had you not created me in the first place, I wouldn't have had a purpose. I would rather not have a purpose. Ya layta ummi lam talidni, the fourth Imam says, that is he's very honest, with a lot of integrity, says these du'as. Of course, at times he's saying it to us to teach us how to think through these things. God, how can I face death? It's the worst thing ever. And it is. That is the worst thing ever. Refer inwardly. It's not good because we haven't understood it accurately. The death of our own selves, even though We come to terms with our own mortality at some point, right? We can't come to terms with mortality of those around us. It's difficult. And then the Imam says, and what awaits beyond death is so unbearable that death becomes a pleasant alternative. Ya layta ummi lam talidni, if only my mother were not to have given me birth to come into this world in the first place. That is a true state of ours. So the religious response is, God has created you and it's a favor. And you ask, how can it be a favor coming into this hellhole? How can this be a favor of God? It's not a nice place to be in. And then God, you make whatever you want and you decide whatever you want. You have made me, I'm not a female, I'm talking on behalf of a female. You have made me a Muslim female. And look at the state of male chauvinism in Islam. Why did you decide to make me into a female as opposed to a male? Why did you make me poor as opposed to rich? Why did you make me this color as opposed to that color? Why did you make him take birth in Islam and this guy in the folds of another religion? He thinks he's the chosen one. He thinks he's the chosen one. The religious responses do not satisfy, because the question is not, who am I? How did I get here in the first place? The question is, what is my purpose here? And that's why the responses do not make sense. There is squarely no sense left in religion, because the religion starts off with an assumption. I am here, God has placed me here, it's the mercy of God, it's the bestowal of God, He has made me sick, it's the bestowal of God. The onus falls on God. When the onus falls on God, God has to be justified. And religion constantly is on the back foot, in a battle in which it is losing constantly. Because it constantly needs to justify God and God's decision. And God cannot be justified on this assumption. God can just not be justified. Why did He create me? I ask a question. Why did He create me? Well, He created you to worship Him. Is He so needy of my worship? I mean, He's got trillions of stars out there. He's got Jibraeel, salamullah alayhi. He's got those angels, the Quran say, that we do tasbih of Allah and taqdees of Allah. Why does He need me to worship Him? What will He gain? Religion can't respond, but it is for you yourself that He's ordained you to worship Him. Well, I didn't want this. First you said He's created me to worship Him. Now you're telling me that He's created me to worship Him because it's good for me. Had He not created me in the first place, He wouldn't have needed to favor me, would He? You see, the onus is on God to justify His own creative act. And God, through the language of religion, cannot justify Himself. And I think we need to understand that very clearly, that there is no justification for God to have created us, if that be the truth. And I'm going to radically challenge this, that is not the truth. The religious response is not accurate because it's not drawn from the Quran, and it is not drawn from accurate reasoning, and it is not drawn from intuition. If, on the other hand, we can prove that this is not the commencement of our journey in this world, we have existed before this. This is an interim phase, and this phase is brought about because of what we ourselves have done or deserved. If I am sick, this color, this gender, that, whatever, the onus is on me, myself. And this is indeed a huge bestowal, mercy and favor from God. It's an opportunity for me to redeem myself of something that has happened previously. Now we want to work into this theme slowly and gradually. You will need your smart devices, and we'll need to go through these verses gently and slowly. Yeah? So now, the talk today is about, I know we've spoken about the royal we, the meaning of Rabb, the meaning of Allah in certain places, and we said we need to work it out contextually and try and see that a lot of things are happening out there and in there and everywhere, right? But one of the most fundamental components of this theory is that we have had an existence. I don't know how many, but at least the mind can deduce one from the verses of the Quran and from rational deliberations. Now, the Muslim theologians and the Muslim philosophers do not accept that we have had a pre worldly existence. The reason why they don't accept is because it is incompatible with the definition of the soul. And it inevitably yields or leads to the implication of reincarnation. Now, I'll say here that it is their own understanding of the soul that impels them to force ontology into the definition of the soul, whereas their definition of the soul is not accurate. The best tool that we have at an intellectual level is the principle of no finality. Whatever we have understood makes sense. As soon as we get information that cannot be fitted into the paradigm that we have, it shows that that paradigm needs to break and we need to reconstruct a paradigm that allows for greater understanding. And we can reconcile things. No finality is our condition. Nothing is stagnant for any moment. If the Blessed Prophet is reported to have said, Rabbi zidni tahayyuran, O Lord, increase me in my bewilderment, what does that show? That no matter how much of a penetrative insight I have into you and your being, I stand baffled at the next stage of the insight. How phenomenal Hussein says, phenomenally Janabi Hussein says in his Dua Arafah, that as soon as your lovers become accustomed to an aspect of you, you quickly give them a deeper insight and keep their hearts yearning. ذَلِكَ هُوَ Allah. That is Allah, the unending one. So the Muslim philosophers and theologians, the Shia ones at least, the renowned ones, do not accept this. However, unlike them, the mystics like Rumi accept it. They accept these ideas that we have existed before. But what I'm trying to understand here is that why has everybody failed to understand that it's in the Quran? Now I know people will come and say, well, the interpretation is radically different from yours. We'll say, okay, let's just interpret them then. Let's just see with a minimum imposition on the verses of the Quran from ourselves. Read them for what they say. But you know the thing that we've been talking about, we and the Lord. Adam, you asked me this yesterday. Has anybody said it before? The fact that our theologians have quoted the ahadith shows that they accepted it of sort. People like Saduq and Mufid. The fact that Faiz Kashani quotes that hadith as a philosopher and a mystic shows that he accepted it. The fact that Ibn Arabi says the hand of God is not mere metaphor shows that he accepted it. But maybe they did not have that liberty of expressing it to the fullest of their understanding. Due not to the limitation of their understanding, but due to the limitation of their audience and their context. Maybe that was the reason they didn't express it. And that's why we may not be finding it, so pronounced as a teaching. But by no means is it novel in that way. The fact that the hadiths are there, the fact that theologians have quoted those ahadith, the fact that Imam Sadiq is quoted as saying that we is not God here, shows that anyone who can quote that hadith shows that they agree with Imam Sadiq and they are seeing a nuance. Now, but these grand philosophers, even though they accepted those things, they did not exist, they did not accept the pre-existence of the human soul. Now imagine, if we were to understand that we have existed before coming to this world, and this world is a consequence of what we have done, then God is exonerated altogether. And then the problem is not with God anymore. Why did God send me here? Why did He create me in this way? Why is He going to reward me? Why is He going to punish me? The answer comes, why did you choose to come here? Try and find out. What did you do that you have been molded in this way? Try and find out. What were the pacts you made due to which you find and you face a perilous path in front of you? Salvation or damnation? The onus comes back on the human being and is removed from God altogether. That is how fundamental this idea is to our understanding. Now, when we go to the notion of the pre-existence of the human souls, people will not believe it, and I know that. Not because it doesn't make sense, but because our minds have been indoctrinated. Now, as a prelude, it's going to take some time. As a prelude, you see, no mind will accept that a fast can be 22 hours. No mind can accept it. But because sunrise and sunset have been instilled in our minds as the markers of daytime, we will not understand that the fast cannot be 22 hours. We will say fast has to be 22 hours because of sunrise and sunset. Now, if you were to take away the indoctrination of sunrise and sunset, you will say a day's fast is a conventional day's fast, what is good for the body. In northern regions, in winter, sunrise and sunset allows for 4 hours of daytime. No man-thinking person will say that a 4-hour fast is a beneficial fast. But because of indoctrination that sunrise and sunset marks the day, we'll say, well, God intends this and God knows it's beneficial for our bodies, so a 4-hour fast is good for us. Or even a 2-hour fast is good for us. In some regions, it's 2 hours only. And we will just fast and open our fast and have nice iftari. And everybody will go about their way happily, but nobody will think. But if a person could think beyond the indoctrination, they will know it makes perfect sense. Now, I realize the problem here that people will not agree. So we are going to be looking at the verses of the Quran. And as the Prophet said, Al-Quran yufassir ba'dahu ba'da. The Quran provides exegy for itself, some parts through others. فَفَسِّرُ الْقُرْآنِ بِبَعْضِهِ بَعْضًا. Thus, interpret the Quran through itself, some verses through other verses. And that's a hermeneutical method that the Prophet suggested, the interpretive method that the Prophet suggested. So we're going to go through various genre of verses. The first set of verses we're going to go through is the creation of the nafs prior to the embodiment of Adam. Surah Araf, which is Surah 7, verse number 11. Kindly open it. Surah 7, verse 11. Tell me when you're ready, yeah? So now this verse, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَاكُمْ ثُمَّ صَوَّرْنَاكُمْ ثُمَّ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ لَمْ يَكُنْ مَعَ السَّاجِدِينَ or مِنَ السَّاجِدِينَ. Indeed, we created you, then we fashioned you. Then we said to the angels, prostrate before Adam. Now, the you pronoun that is coming in Arabic is kum, which is a plural. And thumma is an adverb giving sequence. We created you, then we fashioned you, then we said to the angels, prostrate before Adam. This sequence is saying you were created and you were fashioned, and then Adam was made a point of prostration. It's a very clear verse. We created you, we fashioned you, and then we said to the angels, prostrate before Adam. Now, you will say, but how can we be fashioned when we came from Adam? And Adam was the first embodied human being. We will say, think about it. This embodied state of ours is preceded by another state in which we actually existed with forms, maybe not material forms. And Adam was embodied in matter, if we want to call it matter, and then Adam was made a point of prostration. But the Quran is clear, we created you, we fashioned you. Then we say to the angels, prostrate before Adam. Okay, if we don't understand that, then consider verse 1 of Surah Nisa, which is Surah 4. Surah 4, verse 1. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة. O humans, Be mindful of your Lord who has created you from one soul. وَخَلَقَ مِنْهَا زَوْجَهَا, and He created from it its pair. وَبَثَّ مِنْهُمَا رِجَالًا كَثِيرًا وَنِسَاءً, and He spread from them to many men and many women. Look at the verse. He created you from one soul. We are all expression of one same soul. The 8 billion people on the face of this earth are no more than one soul. And we will explain this afterwards. It's one person entering into different bodies. One person entering into different simulations, into different machinery, and forgetting who he really is or she really is. And they feel the human soul is neither a male nor a female, nor a Muslim, nor a kafir, nor young, nor old, nor sick, nor healthy, nor rich, nor poor. They are nothing. They're something quite different. These are bodily features. We created you from one soul. Then we created from it its pair. The pair part here is the Adamic body and Bibi Hawa's body. Why I say this? Look at the continuation. وَبَثَّ مِنْهُمَا رِجَالًا كَثِيرًا وَنِسَاءً, and He spread from them to many men and many women. There is no question of man and women before the embodiment of Adam. Man and women can only come after the embodiment of Adam and Hawa. Only when Adam is made into a male body and Hawa is made into a female body do you get man and women. Prior to this stage, there is no man, there is no woman, there's only one soul. And all of us are there, maybe in a very different state, but not as man or as women. Yeah? So you can see the sequence. You are created, you are fashioned, then Adam was made a point of prostration, then Adam's pair was created from Adam himself. And in the paper that I gave recently, I said Bibi Hawa or Adam seems to be a clone. Now, if not Adam, then Bibi Hawa is definitely a clone from Adam. And then from the two of them, many men and women were spread in the land. I know you're not going to agree with me so far, so let's go to another set of verses. The verses of covenants. Ali Imran 81, Surah 3, verse 81. Surah 3, verse 81. وَإِذَا أَخَذَ Allah مِيثَاقَ النَّبِيِّينَ, when Allah took the covenant from the prophets. لَمَا أَتَيْتُكُم مِّن كِتَابٍ وَحِكْمَةٍ, as I've given you the book and the wisdom. ثُمَّ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ, and when a messenger comes to you, مُصَدِّقٌ لِمَا مَعَكُمْ, verifying what is with you, لَتُؤْمِنُنَّ بِهِ, you will have faith in what the messenger is saying. وَلَتَنْصُرُنَّهُ, and you will assist the messenger. قَالَ, he asked or he said, أَأَقْرَرْتُمْ, do you agree, O prophets? وَأَخَذْتُمْ عَلَى ذَلِكُمْ إِسْرِي, and do you take the burden from me? قَالُوا أَقْرَرْنَا, they said, yes, we testify and we agree. قَالَ, he said, the Lord, فَاشْهَدُوا وَأَنَا مَعَكُمْ مِنَ الشَّاهِدِينَ, bear witness, and I too bear witness. Where was this covenant taken? It's taken collectively. وَإِذْ أَخَذَ اللَّهُ مِيثَاقَ النَّبِيِّينَ, when God took the covenant from the prophets. Do you take the covenant? Yes, we do. Then bear witness, and I too will bear witness. And when my messenger comes to you, you will believe in him. So the exegetes will probably be inclined to say that this is the final messenger. When did the final messenger go to Nabi Adam? When did he go to Nabi Nuh? When did he go to Nabi Ibrahim? When did he go to Nabi Musa or Isa? The final messenger comes right at the end. And the final messenger himself, and I know this is going to offend a lot of the Shias and the Sunnis, but the final messenger, Salamullah alayhi, did not have recollection of the prior world until after he became the messenger, and then he recollected the prior world. And he said, Kuntu nabiyan wal adna bain al-ma wa teen. I was a prophet whilst Adam was still being structured with water and dust. But before that stage, he did not recollect. He recollected afterwards. So who is this messenger? This messenger of God that is going to the Nabiyyin is more than likely Gabriel or Ruhul Quds or Ruhul Amin. There is ambiguity as to who this messenger is. So whenever the ruh would come to a prophet and ignite the inner being and say, do you remember? And once they consent and concede, the inner being starts yielding the message. It's being revealed and it yields. So the mithaq of the Nabiyyin was taken in a collective capacity. Do you all bear witness? The Nabiyyin are spread throughout human history. They were never together, as far as their bodies are concerned, in one place so that the collective oath can be taken from them. The collective oath can only be taken when they are all together, and that was not in this world, that was in a world prior to this world. And therefore the messenger who came to them is not Prophet Muhammad, but it's more than likely Ruhul Quds, Ruhul Amin, or Gabriel. Ruhul Amin is called Hazrat Jibreel is called Ruhul Amin at some points. Yes? If you do not concede to this one, then let's go to another verse. But it's to a lesser extent, and I may not explain why it's to a lesser extent, but it is a very powerful verse. But lesser extent nonetheless. I've written it in the article if the head of department accepts it. You can read it in there. Surah Araf 172, Surah 7, verse 172. Yeah? Now this is a verse we've been hearing all our lives. وَإِذْ أَخَذَ رَبُّكَ مِنْ بَنِي آدَمَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ وَأَشْهَدُهُمْ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ أَلَسْتُ بِرَبِّكُمْ قَالُوا بَلَى شَهِدْنَا أَن تَقُولُوا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ إِنَّا كُنَّا عَنْ هَذَا غَافِلِينَ. And when your Lord took from the loins of the children of Adam their future generations, and he made them a witness upon themselves, and he said, am I not your Lord? They said, Bala, yes, we agree. You are our Lord. We bear witness. And we bear witness. God says, least on the day of Qiyamah, you say we were not aware of this. You know, on the day of Qiyamah, people say, we weren't aware that, you were our Lord. We just took birth in the world, and I took birth to a household who did not know Islam or Christianity or Hinduism. How am I supposed to know you're my Lord? Look at this verse. At least you say on the day of Qiyamah that I did not know about this. As do you remember the time when your Lord took from the children of Adam, from their backs, their future generations, and made them testify, am I not your Lord? They said, we testify you are our Lord. Least on the day of Qiyamah, you tell me that we had no knowledge of this. You have full knowledge. You're going to ask me, why did I forget? We'll respond to that in a couple of days' time. Can you see this verse? It is before the embodiment of those souls. Where was this oath taken? Where was it taken? Do we remember God taking such a covenant from us? Is Quran lying? The Quran is not lying and we don't remember. So it's not been taken in this world of ours. It has to be taken somewhere where the collective being was there. Now in the hadith literature it says Alamud Dar. Adam saw all his future progeny. And the future progeny was assembled. And the Lord said, bear witness that I am your Lord. And they said, yes, you are. Now on the day of Qiyamah, I'm going to remind you about this. Yeah? So is it becoming more and more clear that something has happened before we came into this world? I just want acknowledgement. Just say yes, so I can move forward. Surah Yasin, 36:60. Surah 36, verse 60. Alam a'ahad ilaykum ya bani Adama an la ta'budu ash-shaytan. Innahu lakum aduwwun mubin. Did I not make a pledge with you, O children of Adam, that do not worship shaitan? He is your enemy. We are the children of Adam, aren't we? I'm talking about a very peripheral type of analysis, yes? Although we can give another analysis here, radically different, but that in a few years' time, if Allah wills. O children of Adam, did I not tell you, don't worship shaitan? He is your open enemy. Which one of us remembers this? Which one of us remembers this? None of us remember this, do we? But the Quran can't be lying. It's not this world, it's some other plane of existence. Now, I'm just going to, there's quite a bit that I have to go through, but bear with me today. Surah Fajr, Surah 23, verse 24. You will see the Quran, everywhere there are verses. Why did you forget? Remember, remember, remember. Yeah? وَجِيءَ يَوْمَئِذٍ بِجَهَنَّمٍ. On that day, hell will be brought forth. يَوْمَئِذٍ يَتَذَكَّرَ الْإِنسَانِ. On that day, man will finally remember. وَأَنَّ لَهُ الذِّكْرَى. And of what use will his remembrance be on that day? يَقُولُ يَا لَيْتَنِي قَدَّمْتُ لِحَيَاتِي. He will say, if only in despair, if only I had sent something forth for my real life. He will remember on that day what he was supposed to remember in this life, what he remembered before coming into this life. He will finally remember on that day. So the oaths and the pledges and everything that has happened will finally be remembered. But this is not the only verse. Go through the Quran. Don't read it in the same way that you've been reading it all this time. Look at the next set of verses. I'm only going to quote 111. Forgetfulness of the meeting on the last day. This is scattered everywhere in the Quran. Just take Surah Sajda, Surah 32, verse 14. This verse and similar verses are everywhere. فَذُوقُوا بِمَا نَسِيتُمْ لِقَاءَ يَوْمِكُمْ هَذَا. Now taste the fire due to your forgetfulness of our meeting on this day. Inna nasinakum. We have forgotten you now, i.e., we will not give you respite. This verse has, or similar verses, are there throughout the Quran. Why did you forget of our meeting on this day? God is saying, do you agree to my pledge? They said, Bala, shahidna. Yes, we bear witness. And now the response comes, why did you forget? Why did you forget this meeting day? Least you say on the day of Qiyamah, I had no knowledge of this. There you go, that's the response. On the day of Qiyamah, you're going to say, we are going to forget you because you forgot. And on the one hand, you say, yes, we bear witness, we will not forget. I warned you that you will forget. And now you have forgotten. Can you see this? Why don't you remember? The Quran is saying again and again, remember, remember, remember. Another verse, and I'm going to go through them. Surah Mu'minun, Surah 23, verse 115. We did this yesterday. أَفَحَسِبْتُمْ أَنَّمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ عَبَثًا وَأَنَّكُمْ إِلَيْنَا لَا تُرْجَعُونَ. Have you assumed that we have created you in vain and that you will not be returned to us? The meaning of return means to go back to the place where we've come from, doesn't it? That you will not be returned to us. And the verse we read at everybody's death, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We are for Allah and we are returning to God. What's the meaning of returning to God if you've not come from God? How can you return when you've not had a past? By the way, I'll just give the reference to that. Surah Baqarah. You know the verse, don't you? I've forgotten to write it down. It's Surah 2, verse 100 and something. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Now look at this sequence of death and life in the Quran. Surah Baqarah, Surah 2, verse 28. كيف تكفرون بالله وكنتم أمواتا فأحياكم ثم يميتكم ثم يحييكم ثم إليه ترجعون. How can you disbelieve in Allah when you were dead and He brought you to life, then He will cause you to die, then you will be resurrected and sent back to Him. You see, the Quran is a phenomenal work, and you know it's from the divine realm because the sequence of death and life is held true wherever you look in the Quran. خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. He created death and life to test you. You were dead, but in a state of death, and He brought you into a state of life. He will cause you to die again. Now I know the antagonist will say here, that means non-existence. But the Quran gives meaning to its own self. So look at Surah Ghafir 40:11. This is an explanation, elaboration of why death comes first and then life. قالوا ربنا أمتنا إثنتين وأحييتنا إثنتين. Our Lord, you caused us to die twice and you brought us to life twice. There was a causing of death before this, then we were brought to life. Then there's a causing of death again, and then we're going to be brought to life again. So that death that precedes life was caused. So if we are being caused to die, we are. Can you see that? We are caused to die. We are brought to life, we are caused to die, we are brought to life. Kuntum amwatan, you were dead. Then he brought you to life. Then he will kill you. Then he will bring you to life. And that verse is saying, you caused us to die twice. If death meant non-existence, then the meaning that you caused me to die twice would have no meaning. If death was equated with non-existence, then there is no meaning to say you caused me to die twice, because I can't be caused to die if I'm non-existent. That's going through, right? Yeah? Oh, there's a phenomenal verse in Surah Waqi'ah. And I'm just going to recite it, right? It's Surah 56, 60 and 62. Look over it. نحن قدرنا بينكم الموت وما نحن بمسبوقين على أن نبدل أمثالكم وننشئكم فيما لا تعلمون ولقد علمتم النشأة الأولى فلولا تذكرون. We have destined death amongst you, and we can raise you in whichever, and we are not to be preceded, we are not to be overruled, and we can raise you in whichever form we want, And indeed, you already understood the first raising, then why do you not recollect? Such a powerful verse. نحن قدرنا بينكم الموت وما نحن بمسبوقين ألا أن نبدل أمثالكم. We can change your forms وننشئكم فيما لا تعلمون, and raise you in a way that you cannot even imagine. وَلَقَدْ عَلِمْتُمُ النَّشْأَةَ الْأُولَى. Indeed, you're cognizant of your first raising. فَلَوْلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Then why do you not recollect? Why do you not remember? Look at these sets of verses. The first creation. I'm only going to quote one or two. Surah An'am, Surah 6, verse 94. Just the first part of the verse. وَلَقَدْ جِئْتُمُونَا فُرَادًا كَمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ. You have come to us individually as we created you the first time. Where was this first time? Can you see this? It's not the birth. There is some other place in which we have been created the first time. You have all been created individually. You've come to us as we created you for the first time. Look at the next verse. Surah Kahf, Surah 18, verse 48. وَعُرِضُوا عَلَى رَبِّكَ صَفًّا لَقَدْ جِئْتُمُونَا كَمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ. And they will be presented to God in rows. Indeed, you have come to us the way we created you the first time. So it seems first time here means a time before this life, that we were all standing in some way. And we're going to continue with this discussion tomorrow. And we're going to give the rational implications about what it means to not agree to a pre-worldly existence of human beings. But if we can understand that we've existed prior to coming to this world, the problems that we are having with God will dissipate. We will say, no, there's a different way of understanding God's involvement into this life now. God is freed because the onus of creating us is not upon God. So this idea that we've been created from nothing and then suddenly placed here, and this is a favor from God which is totally nonsensical will become sensible, that we have taken the honors of being here. Or it's a consequence of something that has happened previously. But as my time has finished, I want to build on one point. In hadith, we find this, that when you feel a certain sense of comfort with another soul, and you feel this recognition and intense attachment and love, I'm not talking about people who fall in love, right? That's not Bollywood type, but a genuine leaning of the soul to another soul, then it is because you have met in the world prior to this world. And your souls recognize each other, but your minds cannot equate it. Your minds do not understand. But that cordiality, that beauty, that comfort, that love, that recognition is from there. The Prophet has also said that you and your spouses have been chosen for each other in a world before you came here. Now, I know many husbands and wives look at each other and say, why did I choose you? Doesn't make sense. But no, there's a good sense why people are chosen for each other. But definitely, when we look at certain people, we say, I recognize this person. I know them. There is some deep knowing. That is coming from the world before this world, when the souls recognize each other. And I feel that those 150 or 72 wonderful stars and lights and lamps that accompanied Hussein were people drawn to him that already recognized his beauty and his radiance. And one of the most luminous, the shining star of Hussein was Habib ibn Madahir. When you see his love for Hussein and Hussein Salamullah alayhi's love for Habib, you will say it's remarkable. It's quite remarkable. Zainab comes to Imam Hussein and she said, brother, my heart knows no grief. My anxiety has no limit. Look at the amount of soldiers that are gathering here to put you to death. Call on to your helpers and on to your friends. He said, dear Zainab, who may your brother call on to in this wilderness? At least call on to your friend Habib. Hussein dispatches a letter. The messenger of Hussein secretly goes into Kufa. I will narrate the expression and the emotion. There is a knock at the door in the depth of the night. Who be at the door? Asks Habib. The messenger of Hussein. He rushes and opens the door, receives the letter, opens it. Habib, O Faqih, O Hafidh of Quran, I, Hussein, son of Ali, write to you, Habib, the son of Madahir. I have arrived in Karbala. Hasten to me and do not value your life above my life. Habib shed tears and placed his letter upon his chest. His wife asked, who is it from? From Hussein. What does he say? He is trapped in the wilderness of Karbala. Asks me to go and assist him. Shall you do so? But what will happen to you? You have no one. He said, Habib, do you say this when Hussein asks you? May your wife die of regret if you were to not go. He said, I was only testing you. Habib comes to the streets of Kufa trying to escape the checkpoints. He meets Muslim ibn Awsaja, the great Muslim ibn Awsaja. What a man. He said, Muslim, have you heard? Hussein is in Karbala, surrounded by enemies. Muslim had bought some color to dye his beard with. He threw it, by God, I will dye it with my blood in the assistance of my master Hussein. Muslim and Habib made their way towards Karbala. This was around the 6th of Muharram. Hussein, not knowing when the battle will commence, had already prepared the standards from what we read. And he handed over the standards to his gallant warriors, Abbas, as the champion of all champions. There was one standard left from what I read. I narrate the sentiment. They were all desirous of that standard. Hussein kept it close to his chest. Who is this for, O Hussein? The bearer of the standards shall soon approach. From a distance, there was raised dust coming from the galloping of a horse. There he is, the bearer of this standard. As the dust settled and they saw Habib, there was commotion and joy. Habib descended from his steed. He looked at Hussein tearfully. Even though I have become old and unable, whenever I look at you, O Hussein, youthfulness begins to flow within my veins. Zainab asked, why such joy? Habib, the childhood friend of Hussein, has come. Send him my salam. When the salam of Zainab was received by Habib, he slapped his face at the thought of the impending death of Hussein. Oh, for the sorrow, he cried out. He fought alongside Hussein. Muslim fell from his steed. Habib with Hussein goes to Muslim ibn Awsaja. He says, brother, even though I am about to come to you, is there any last request you have from me? Muslim, with his trembling hand, pointed at Hussein. And he said, Habib, alayka bihadha shakhs ma dumta hayya. Habib, save this man with your life for as long as you're alive. Abu Thumama calls out the adhan for prayers. Habib comes to Hussein. Oh Hussein, as much as I want to pray this namaz with you, allow me to fight your enemies. I would much rather go and pray with your grandfather and your father and your brother. Hussein allows Habib to fight. Habib fights gallantly. He calls out, oh wretched people, had we been your equal in numbers or half of you, you would have fled for your lives. May God not take mercy upon you. Enough. Silence him and put him to death. Came the command. Habib was struck upon his head. He descends to the ground. A spear arrives upon his chest. As he begins to raise, suddenly another blow upon his head. When Hussein saw this from afar, the narrators say, we saw expression of hopelessness and despair on the face of Hussein that we did not see previously. Habib calls out to Hussein. Hussein arrives at the body of Habib. He carries the head of Habib. Indeed, you are a faqih, you are an alim, Habib. You have stayed true to your covenant. But do you leave me, O Habib? At that point, Habib says, this is your grandfather, O Hussein. And he says, tell my Hussein, O Hussein, hasten to me, for I eagerly await your coming. Matame Hussein.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. राज दुलारा ज़हरा का ज़ख्मी है और प्यासा है राज दुलारा ज़हरा का ज़ख्मी है और प्यारा है। राज दुलारा ज़हरा का ज़ख्मी है और प्यासा है। राज दुलारा राह खुदा में जल्दी की आगे जाने वालों ने सुबह के साथ ही छूट गए। शाम हुई अब तन्हाई, राज दुलारा हरा का राज दुलारा और प्यासा है। अकबर कासिम कोई नहीं, आस बंधे तो किस से बंधे। दरिया छीनने वाला भी दरिया छीन के सोया है। राज दुलारा है, राज दुलारा है और प्यासा है। खून की नदी ऐसी बड़ी, सुबह के लेकर शाम तलक। चांद नबी के डूब गए, सूरज डूबने वाला है। राज लारा ज़हरा का ज़ख्मी है। राज दुलारा ज़ख्मी और प्यासा है। कल जो नबी के दोष पे था, आज वो सवार है नेज़े पर। एक जमाना ऐसा था, एक जमाना ऐसा है। राज लारा प्यासा है। राज दुलार ज़हरा का सा है। मौत ये तेरी कैसी थी, मरने वाले तेरे लिए। मजलिस बस्ती बस्ती है, मातम सहरा सहरा है। राज दुलार ज़हरा का राज दुलारा ज़हरा का है और प्यासा। सूरत अल-फातिहा। अस्सलामु अलैका या नबी अल्लाह, अस्सलामु अलैका या रसूल अल्लाह, अस्सलामु अलैका या अमीर अल-मुमिनीन, अस्सलामु अलैका या फातिमा अज़-ज़हरा सय्यदती निसाइल आलमीन, अस्सलामु अलैका या खदीजत अल-कुबरा उम्मुल मुमिनीन, अस्सलामु अलैका या अय्युहल हसनुल मुज्तबा, अस्सलामु अलैका या अबा अब्दिल्लाह وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك وأناخت برحلك عليك مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين وعلى أخوات الحسين. السلام عليكم يا شهداء كربلاء وأسراء كربلاء جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولى ابن مولى، السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء، السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء، السلطان أبا الحسن مولانا علي بن موسى الرضا، كن شفيعنا وشفيع والدينا في يوم الجزاء. سلام الله وعلى آبائك السبعة وأبنائك الأربعة وعلى أختك فاطمة المعصومة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا حجة الله يا ابن الحسن، يا صاحب العصر والزمان، سيدي الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان، السلام عليك يا إمامي وإمام الإنس والجان، أجر الله تعالى فرجك وسحل الله مخرجك وجعلنا من أوانك وأنصارك والمستشهدين بين يديك. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
We have a short announcement to make as well, so if you can all remain seated, that'd be appreciated.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm only going to take just 2 minutes of your time before Salat. The reason I stand in front of you today is because Time for Change, in conjunction with Who is Hussein Birmingham, will be hosting its first ever Ashura food drive next Saturday, 29th of July in City Centre. We would like to provide hot meals, hot drinks, non-perishable food items, and toiletries to the most destitute in Birmingham. In memory of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, his values and what he stood for, here is a practical way of how you can help. You can donate non-perishable food items and toiletries in the big clear plastic box at the entrance. You might have seen it when you came in. That box will be there until Friday next week. The children will then be packing all the items ready for the following day. There is a full list of items on the actual poster. Poster is going around on social media and on the WhatsApp group. You can make cash donations. There is a donation box in the entrance on the table that says Time for Change, or you can come and see one of us directly. When I say one of us, myself, Muhammad Moti, Sheikh Tajri, or Zinat present today. You can also make a donation by card. Please be aware that the card donation machine at the entrance is different. If you would like to donate specifically for this Ashura food drive, please contact Zinat. You can also donate using our PayPal link. Please make sure you select paying family and friends option and specify that it is going to be for the Ashura food drive. I always remember one quote. If you are in a position to help someone, help them. God just might be answering that person's prayer through you. You and me have got the power to make a difference. You and me have got the power to help those less fortunate than us. You and me have got the power to remove that worry of going to sleep on a hungry stomach, even if it's only for one night. You and me have got the power to improve those people's life for a few days with basic items that inshallah we all have access to. You and me have got the power to bring a little bit of light in someone's life. You and me have got the power to make a difference right now, right here. I guess the real question I ask myself is, will I take this opportunity to make a difference? Thank you.
Please feel free to prepare for Salah.